Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to another day in the life video. So we slept on top of the canyon last night, and this morning we take you with us on a hike on top of the ridgeline.
After that hike, we're going to hopefully find an awesome little campsite by doing some 4x4 down an old dry riverbed and into a beautiful canyon. Once we find our campsite for the night, we'll set up a fire and cook up a big feed. We've got some nice food planned and should be a real good day.
But before that, coffee and ginger nut biscuits.
Coffee and a little mini morning hike to get the day cracking. Pretty choice. Whenever I get excited on like a hike because I'm exploring, I end up going a million miles an hour, and Ange is always just like, what are you doing? I can't run that fast over rocks. And then I slow down and wait a bit and then carry on. Just what I do. Well, someone's pulled that off. Basically just says track closed because it's steep and there's loose terrain. But signs like that, unless it's like, you know, don't go because of vegetation regrowth, we usually just do stuff like that anyway if it looks fine, as long as it doesn't look stupid. But we've done far more extreme stuff than that, so we'll carry on. So it turns out flying the drone while hiking on a precipitous mountain edge and getting both people in the shot and it being smooth is actually really, really challenging. Anyone who has a drone, you'll know there's that active track thing, but it hardly ever works for us. So it ends up always just being manual flying, but that was tricky that time.
It's so peaceful in here. We can't hear any other noise than the bird in a distance. That's so nice. That's why hiking sometimes is so rewarding, because you get like further away from the roads. You don't have any like people around. So that's why we like to do that kind of hiking, like a bit like more challenging and really taking you to like stunning landscape like that. And hiking as well for us is like a form of fitness. Like we like to train on the road with a kettlebell, go to the gym or things like that. But hiking is so underrated. Like it's an amazing form of exercise, especially when you've got like up and down like this. And you get to see as well all of these amazing landscapes. I get like another perspective of the canyon that you can't see from the lookout. So I really encourage you to go hiking a little bit more. And anyway, today we were so sore from the gym 2 days ago. So that's why we're not gonna train. This is a little training for today. So now we are just gonna have a little bit of water, maybe continue a little bit more and head back to the car for breakfast.
Time for a little pre-breakfast snack on the trail. I don't eat much beef, but I do like some beef jerky when I'm going on a hike or doing like a multi-day camp. This stuff's really nice. These guys are in Tasmania. Got a bunch of this when we were over there. Been carrying around in the car for special occasions. But yeah, if you like your beef jerky, check out this Tasmanian company, Kui. They're real good. All right, so habanero chili may have not been the best flavor for a hike. Your first thing in the morning, while dehydrated, is a bit hardcore. Breakfast of champions, beans, eggs and bread. What more could a lad want?
So most days we tend to have pancakes for breakfast, really good pancakes, banana pancakes, so healthy, so delicious. But this morning I'm actually craving as well like a savory breakfast. We used to have like some kind of Mexican beans that were already pre-made, but I can't find them anymore. So I'm kind of like making them from scratch now. So I just used half a can of beans, some diced tomatoes, some tomato paste, a lot of smoked paprika, some salt. So I'm just gonna let that cook a little bit. And then I'm gonna crack some eggs, kind of like make like a shakshuka kind of thing. I don't have like any proper bread, so I'm just gonna use a wrap. And that should be breakfast for this morning. That's the finishing result. And final touch, some chili flakes. Bon appetit!
All right, so now we are looking for our campsite for the night. So we're gonna go into a little canyon that we actually went into, you would have seen on the Troopy video. And we drove past like a really neat looking tree that I reckon will pose a really good campsite spot for tonight.
All right, it's time to air down. So I've got a very important job, removing the valve caps. And Chris is deflating the tires.
So we're about 23 at the moment, PSI, because we were driving on the beach in the Gulf earlier. Normally we drive at 35 PSI in the tires. Taking it down to 16 today for the rock crawling, which seems to be like our go-to off-road tire pressure if the sand's soft or if there's serious rocks. And that is stopping from getting too many chips in the lugs. We've got one there, but not too many. They're lasting really well. They have been rotated since we bought them. But yeah, these Mickey Thompsons are lasting super well. A big investment, but they've paid off.
So Chris had to go for a little bush poo. I don't know, I can't see him. But I'm gonna take over and drive this little off-road trail in the dry river bed. I always have to put the seat very high because I can't see anything. Like the windscreen on the Jeep, they're like so tiny. It's like a little tank basically. And I always have as well, obviously, to move the length for my legs. Here it is. You can see him on the rear vision camera. It's like a little like way I can spy on him. What is he up to? Here he is.
I did to do poo.
Alright.
Must have eaten something weird. Maybe it was that beef jerky.
Alright, so now we've got a full crew on board.
Full crew. I feel much better.
Good, let's go. That Jeep is so capable. I have to do nothing. So enjoyable. I was like terrified of like off-roading and four driving before, but like having auto is a huge plus. I'm used to driving manual because in France we mainly drove manual, but yeah, having an auto definitely changed the game. When you do off-roading like that, you just have basically to have your foot on the pedal and that's it.
Ange is crushing the drive.
So bumpy.
And yeah, it's pretty full on. Just down an old riverbed gully. Okay, so we're making this big old tree home for the night, I think. Got an old fireplace, some firewood. This should be perfect. So we've decided to reverse in so that we can get the kitchen right up towards the fire and obviously our cooking space. Should be good. Okay, so this is the spot we've opted for. Got enough clearance from the overhanging branches so that we can get the rooftop tent up. That's why we couldn't actually bring it in too close in here. And we've got the pantry in the back nice and close to our fire setup for tonight. And we have propped some rocks under the left passenger tire so we are nice and level. And now we'll get acquainted with camp. So this is the one we drove past. We actually had lunch here in that video we did with Kat and Toby in the Troopy video that you would have seen. So I was like, man, this would be an awesome place to camp the night. Such a cool tree. So now we're gonna have a little bit of a feed, get rehydrated, and get about doing some work.
All right, so we've cleaned the fire ring, removed the rocks that were at the bottom, collected some more firewood. Chris as well cut a little bit of big chunks of wood, and now he's climbing on the tree. So basically he's gonna get like a wire around the tree branch, and we're gonna try to cook our skewers out of like the wire. So we have never tried before. We thought it would be a good way to cook on a fire tonight. So little koala in the tree.
Yeah, so I'm going to tie it around this little branch here and see if we can do something pretty different. Oh. All right. So this wire I found on the beach in the Gulf yesterday, I thought it might come in handy for something. So I'm thinking about tying skewers to the end of this, these skewers here, and then dangling them over the fire like a proper bush camp setup. Such a beautiful spot, eh? Unfortunately, there's 1080p poisoning right through here. 1080p? Doing too much YouTube. 1080 poisoning. So there is unfortunately almost no mammalian life, but there's still tons of birds, little lizards, and I'm sure there's a bunch of snakes just around the corner. So I've just had lunch, drying my spearfishing gear from yesterday's hunt. A little bit breezy today, but yeah, everything is set up, ready to go. just on a little bit of a firewood hunt. So usually when we're looking for stuff like this, tons around here. This tree's got a whole bunch of fallen limbs, but all of this stuff creates really good homes for critters. Stuff through there and that. So, you know, geckos, skinks, snakes, ants, bugs, larvae, all of that stuff. So even though that'll be way easier to get and chop up, probably more enjoyable, just go a bit further and get some smaller branches and stuff that just doesn't look as like livable. I don't want to ruin the environment. I like to come in here and not act like a typical human, you know. So there's this stuff. That's really not much living in that, so that'll be firewood.
So it's almost 1 p.m, so it's time for the second coffee of the day. I'm just getting the water to boil now. We often have 2 coffees a day. I mean, they are so cheap. I calculated the cost of 1 coffee that we make like a few months ago, and it was like something like 20 cents a coffee, which is like nothing. When you realize that, you know, you get takeaway, it's like $5, $5.50, and you pay additional for large double shot almond milk. It goes like very expensive very fast. So by not having coffee in cafes and takeaways and things like that, we're saving so much money that then we can use towards food, which is even better. Little French press cost us like $10, still going strong. Pretty happy with it.
Okay, so it's about 2 p.m. now. Ange is up in the roof nest doing some editing on our next episode. And I've just been collecting some tinder for lighting the fire tonight. So far I've got just a bunch of super dried eucalyptus leaves, twigs and whatnot. And now I'm going around seeing if I can find a better fuel source, because I'm going to use a flint tonight. So far I've found some wallaby scat and some sap. So I'll break it all up. Obviously this wallaby scat's really, really old, and it's just dried grass basically, so it should light really, really well. It's just all over the ground here. Has no smell or anything like that. It's just literally just old grass now. That's what I do when Ange edits. I pick up poo. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to try lighting the fire now. So what I got here is the wallaby dung, bunch of old stuff, some sap, which is usually pretty flammable from eucalyptus. And this is an old cocoon of some kind, whether it's like a spider or some sort of a grub. But I'm hoping that acts a little bit like cotton or something like that and lights really easily. Using an old flint that doesn't get too much use anymore, and my trusty knife from Turkey. Hi! All right. Beast. We did it, guys. Took about 5 minutes and used about half of that flint, but we got a fire going. So I stopped filming for a bit there because it was literally like 5 minutes of me just going on this thing. And it turns out the best way to do it is you hit down on it. So hold it down, boom, 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 like that. Rapid fire action. machine gun flint work, and that's the way to do it, not the really slow, like trying to use the entirety of the flint. Just smack it on the corners and it works really well. Yes. In a place like this where there's tons of dry tinder around and all these dead leaves, I like to have some water, like a decent amount of water, right by the fire so that you can douse anything if you need to. And then obviously we've got tons of water in the car plus a fire extinguisher. But yeah, it's just important to maintain that responsibility out in the bush in case something goes pear-shaped, because there does occasionally get a big gust of wind through here. So yeah, God forbid if anything happened, I can douse it super fast and get on top of it.
Alright, so just did like about an hour of editing, just got some work done, and now it's time for afternoon snack. We've got our favorite chips, the chili and lime mission chips. If you haven't tried them, they are so delicious. They're so good. So we've got some salsa and some ginger beer. We usually drink like non-alcoholic ginger beer on a daily basis. We love our ginger. So we tried this one with our friends, Kat and Toby, last week, and we really like them. So we thought we bought some. They are from Broome, so they are from Western Australia as well, and they taste really, really good. So if you haven't tried them, highly recommend it.
Cheers. Oh, so good.
You can have it as a refreshing mixer with your favorite spirit. So you mix like alcoholic ginger beer with alcohol.
That'd be good. Yeah, that would be good. You can make like a dark and stormy or something like that.
Gluten-free and sweet on natural Australian cane sugar.
That's really nice. Could smash a dozen of those.
Alright, so we're gonna get the food ready for the skewers for tonight. We bought like a range of different veg, some capsicum, some red onion, some zucchini for the skewers, and then we're gonna have a sweet potato that we're gonna roast in the fire. So we'll probably put that first because it takes a bit longer to cook, and then we'll have the skewers after. Ginger beer number 2.
So a bit of a theme for these day in the life videos, I reckon, will be story time. So I was thinking maybe this week, a question for you, Ange. What is one of the most memorable things you've done before you met me?
Well, a few things, but I think for me, one of my biggest achievement was when I was 21, I left Paris, I left my life in France, like the comfort of like having a job, my family, my friends, and I moved all the way to Sydney, Australia. So I didn't know anyone here. My English was okay, but not the best. I just wanted to obviously improve my English and as well like have an overseas experience professionally, but as well I think like a life experience, which I think is really important to go overseas and see what else is like other countries, like other culture. And I'm so glad I did, because I ended up extending my visa and then staying there for longer, and now here I am 6.5 years, nearly 7 years later, and that was probably the best decision I've ever made. What about you?
A little bit similar. So 10 years ago, I left Christchurch, New Zealand, just on a whim, pretty much. I just wanted to see the world. I felt really naive and immature. There had been the big Christchurch earthquakes a year or so before that, and I was like, right, I just want to see the world, because that's one thing about New Zealand, is it is so far away from everything else. So I flew, just took a couple of suitcases and flew all the way to London, United Kingdom, with no job or anything like that. Found my feet, and I worked there for 5 years, and so I managed to see a lot of Europe in that time, which was really, really cool. I think one of the most memorable things I did was I was on my own, and I just one weekend was like, right, I really want to climb the tallest mountain in North Africa. So I booked tickets to Marrakesh in Morocco, took a bunch of hiking equipment and ice axe, stuff like that. Didn't have much knowledge of what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to do it. And so I flew over there, landed in Marrakesh, and then got myself to the Atlas Mountains on a little like transport bus, and I climbed Mount Toubkal in the dead of night at about 3 a.m. in the morning, and managed to get to the top with a fair amount of altitude sickness, bleeding nose, bad nausea and stuff, and then came back down the mountain past like an old wrecked airplane, which is really neat. And then by the time I got back to Marrakesh, I got the worst stomach bug I've ever had in my life, and I was up all night spewing my guts out and didn't think I'd be able to make my flight home in the morning for work, but managed to. So it was an interesting few days, and I lost about 10 kilos in the process. All right, and now another good one I think would be best and worst travel story while we've been together.
So we traveled to a few countries together. We've explored mostly Australia, but we went overseas a few times. Our most recent overseas adventure was last year in October. We went to Indonesia, so started with Bali. We went as well to the island of Java and Flores. In Flores, it's really less touristy, so we're hoping to have like a bit more time on our own. Like we booked like this little hotel in the middle of nowhere, ended up next to like a German guy, and the walls in this little like, it's not really a hotel, it was like a little like,
It's pretty much the same room,
a cottage kind of thing, and he was snoring all night long. We're just like next to him, like basically we could just talk to each other and like he would hear our conversation.
you could see him through like the wall.
It was like a hostel basically,
Yeah.
but it was not supposed to be. We were like really hoping to have some quality time, but we had as well like a great time exploring. I think we had the best sunrise of our lives over there, on top of Mont Batur, which is just in top of this very famous volcano called Mont Bromo. We just like didn't do the touristy things. We just like found basically this little path up that volcano and just had this amazing view in the morning, like with that volcano like not erupting in front of us, but like you had the fumes, and like it was so impressive. Definitely one of the most memorable experiences.
That was cool. One for me that you were on was a few years ago. I organized a really bespoke ecotourism tour in Costa Rica, in some of the very remote parts of Costa Rica, in the jungle, and it was awesome. So I basically spent maybe 6 to 8 months organizing it. Ange came along, a few people from Sydney came along, and a bunch of the guys that were my really good mates back in England. They met us there as well. So there was about, 8 of us? I think there was 8 of us in total. And I'd organized this for so long, but it was incredibly difficult because I don't speak Spanish and we hadn't been to Costa Rica before. So I wasn't really the guide, I was more the planner, and then we had guides along the way, but it ended up being quite stressful. But basically I made this trip really intense, wasn't it? So like every day there was really hardcore physical stuff. One of them was a hike that must have been all up, I think it was, how many hours of hiking was it?
Maybe like 12, 15?
I think it was 12.
It was overnight.
Yeah, it was an overnight hike that turned out to be way more than I thought it would be. And quite tall. It was called Chiro Chiripo, which is the tallest mountain in Costa Rica. And we climbed that, and some of us made it to the top, some of us didn't. It was really full on.
Yeah, it's very like known to be like one of the steepest elevation, like in such a short distance.
And unfortunately, altitude hits me really hard. I don't know if it was because I was hiking too far. We were basically trying to hike to the top of this mountain by sunrise, and we'd started the day before. So we were motoring, but yeah, it got really, really rough. But that whole trip turned out to be, as I had a lot of lows because I found it really stressful running a group like that, but then heaps of highs as well. And all the guys always talk about how it was one of the most memorable trips I've ever done.
Yeah.
But then one of the bad things that happened on it was one night me and the lads went out on a boat to look for crocodiles with this just random local, and Benny, one of the guys in the group, he's an absolute legend. He grabbed a big iguana out of the tree for us to have a look at, put it on the boat, and we all got photos with it. We were pretty cut as well, so we'd had a few too many ginger beers, if you get my drift. And I ended up grabbing this iguana and posing a photo with my mouth open, pretending to bite it. Yeah, I had to put that photo in. The iguana was not harmed, but the mistake I made was my mouth touched the iguana. What I didn't realize is most lizards carry really intense strains of salmonella. Basically, the next day I was violently ill and had a really bad tummy bug, which seems to happen quite a bit on my trips. And yeah, I was very unwell, but it passed in about 12 hours. But then it was still with me for the rest of the trip, and that trip got really intense. So yeah, it's still a real memorable one. I would love to organize some more, and that's something Ange and I are thinking about maybe doing with the outfit, is organizing some overseas trips, sort of bespoke travel plans once obviously all this coronavirus thing.
Yeah. But just right now, so unsure. So it's hard to make plans, hard to like feel and tick that bucket list, basically. But hopefully things will go better very soon.
Yeah, we feel very almost guilty and just bad about what's going on with a lot of other people not being able to get outdoors. And here we are enjoying winter like this in 30 degrees. But I think it just turned out to be good planning and good timing for us. And we were very lucky in that we left our jobs and organized this just before coronavirus actually hit. Man, we feel for you guys out there that are being smashed by this coronavirus ordeal in whatever walk of life you're in. We really don't want these videos to rub it in at all, but we're just doing what we can do, and hopefully you can kind of live vicariously through us and enjoy the bush, and who knows, maybe when you can get out there you can come to some of these places. All right, so it is skewer installation time. Load these bad boys up with all the bright colors.
Got lots of veg, all the colorful.
Oh, I forgot the tomatoes.
Capsicum.
Boom, boom, boom.
Zucchini, onion.
And today I've got lamb. I prefer, if I buy proper meat, I prefer to buy game meat if I can, wild caught game meat. So like kangaroo, crocodile or venison. But the IJ and Exmouth didn't have any game, so I've bought lamb, unfortunately, but I'm sure it'll still taste really good. So I bought some Moroccan spice to have with it. Looking forward to these skewers.
And as I don't eat meat, I made some skewers as well with some marinated spicy barbecue tofu. So that would be a good change for fish, because we've been having fish every single night for dinner for quite a bit. So we are really looking forward to treat ourselves with like some kind of different food, and that should be a really nice dinner.
Hopefully this works. The flames are proper licking up on them. Worst case, if the lamb's not done that well, you can eat it rare, right? So it's not chicken, it's not pork, so it should be okay.
That looks ready.
Looks so good.
Ooh, homemade kebab. Ooh.
It worked really, really well. Lamb's perfect. That idea worked really so well, actually. Ange didn't believe me at first, and now she's cooking her skewers like that. Testament.
It's a bit scary. It feels like the food is gonna fall in the fire, but so far, so good. Mine, I've just finished to cook. This is what it looks like. I've added some sweet potato that was roasting in a fire and a lot of hummus. That looks so good.
All right, so we're going to enjoy this little feast for a bit longer. Once we've had dinner, we're going to chuck some big old marshmallows on the fire, roast them, make a real night of it. We're going to wrap the video up here.
Yeah, so we hope you like this video. If you enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe, comment, share the video, and we'll see you on the next day in the life.
See you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.